You know it's this. Take a perk and a talk of that shit. Money swallowed like sis. Did it perfect in the kid. Got a billion who sang on my head. Look me better put on the road I just spent. I know we got $1 million. The devil that shit ain't not cheaper again.
Hello and welcome back, fellow anime lovers, to MangaMuse. I am delighted to have you join us once again in the world of fanfiction and fantasy. This is the third part of What If Deku Enters Hazbin Hotel. Special note, this fanfic is written and a masterpiece of Mrotrax on FANFICTIONnet. Do check and support the author too. Now smash the like, share and subscribe button for more. Also press the bell icon so that you never miss such great parts. Thanks for the introduction. Now let's dive into the world. Get dressed for gym and then meet me outside. 10 minutes later. Let's just get this over with. Aizawa sighed. The quicker this goes, the sooner I can go back to my nap. He made his way to the front and wasted no time explaining what was going to happen. Listen up, today we will be doing a quirk apprehension test to see how far you all are in regards and versatility with your quirks. Pretty much the same as your usual fitness course, only now you'll be allowed to use your quirk in junction to your actions. In case you're wondering, us teachers have control of how things work, so no orientation for you. Ochako put her hand down. Also, the lowest ranking of you will be expelled and blacklisted from other hero academies. Aizawa added. The life of a hero is not fair, natural disasters, supervillains, invasions, it is no place for the weak or fun-seeking. His words made several, like Mina and Hitoshi, look down. Midoriya. Yes, Eraserhead Sensei. Our hero asked. I'll ask how you know who I am later. Toss the ball as hard as you can. Izuku did such, tossing the ball with all his might, and it only landed just a few feet away. What? Both he and the teacher asked. Izuku looked into himself, trying to feel for anything. Nothing. He tossed off his visor and headphones. Aside from the birds, breeze and whispers of his classmates, he never heard so much of a sinful thought. And when Ge glanced over, no one had kanji on their forms. It was at this point Izuku realized, he couldn't use his quirk. Back in hell, jaws dropped. What was that? Vaggie asked. Seriously, what the F? Husk hollered. The kid's a beast. Why is he blowing it? Cherry added. It's not that he SSSS blowing it. Sirpentious realized, his eyes widened. It's more like, his quirk isn't money. Alastor smiled at this development and couldn't help but let a chuckle escape. Seems he did forget the rules of the contract. Training doesn't count as hero duty. All over hell, many were shocked, but then nodded that made sense. But his teacher said. Vaggie started, only for Alastor to push her aside. Concedente deseos bastardo. Charlie, who had spent the last few days wallowing in depression, suddenly raced forward, and grabbed the radio demon by the collar. Alastor, let. She began. No can do, my dear. Alastor smiled as he slapped her hands away from his collar, which he fixed up. The moment we shook hands, those were the rules. Hardly my fault he wasn't specific. He ain't wrong. Husk shrugged, then realizing something. Wait, but when he was. Hell is a birthing ground for heroism, of course it'd work here. Niffty pointed out absent-mindedly as she dusted off the pictures and tables. Oh, so getting into school to save folks don't count, but anything with mama in it does? Angeldust smirked. Alastor had no verbal response to this, but the ever-so-brief pause in his step spoke volumes. However, the biggest surprise was Charlie, who sighed but then smiled. Well, it was a quick but short run. This got everyone's attention, most prominently Alastor and Vaggie. However, while the former was encouraged, the latter adopted a smirk and shushed the others. My dear. Charlie smiled. I'm kind of surprised Alastor, you said you wanted to kill your boredom by detailing Izuku's adventures. But if he doesn't get into UA, what will happen? Sure, he could become a vigilante on Earth, but you know how by the commandments he is, no UA. Just him going around, doing what he can. Oh, I'm sure a lot of people will still tune in, but only for so long, sooner or later, the show will belly flop and eventually die off. She then looked back at the radio demon. The contract you had with Izuku, however, does mean that you're now stuck taking care of the hotel and everyone in it until the end of time. And sure, you could do a radio show about all of us, I'm sure that'll be interesting. But still, you looked so happy and excited when you were explained how Izuku level grinded, how heroic he was at the test and dealing with gigantomachia. Oh, if only you had a clause in the contract to fix this. You know, I am fully aware you're playing me, my dear. Alastor mused, but still smiled. But this once, I'll go along with it. He then snapped his fingers, manifesting Izuku's contract and a pen. Reaching to make a few adjustments, he suddenly paused and then snapped the contract and pen away. Looks like I don't have to change anything. Surprisingly as it may seem, Shota Aizawa, aka Underground Eraserhead, did not want to fail this kid. He saw so much of Oboro in him it hurt. The way his flames worked as a portal and cushion just as well as combat purposes, his genuine longing to help others and how he had spent so much of his exam doing such. Unprofessional as it was, Aizawa did have a soft spot for this problem child. Just as much as he had for Hitoshi Shinsho, who he'd had to call in a few favors to get into his class and who would probably one of the lowest ranking students. I stand by what I said. He forced himself to say. You can watch the others and then try. While he had been musing, Izuku had been racking his brain to figure out a way to salvage this situation. No quirk, just a stronger quirkless kid, his furor was due. He felt something, a wisp of flame cross his fingers. Aizawa saw it too. Try to save your chance. At the word save, the feeling came back, a little stronger. Save. Izuku whispered. The feeling grew stronger and his skin became paler. An idea. Izuku looked at Aizawa. Instead of a hero, Izuku tried to looking at him in a different sense. This man was an obstacle to prevent the saving of people. The feeling, his quirk, came back in full and Izuku transformed, quickly grabbing the ball and throwing it with all of his might. The ball vanished into a streak which was then accompanied by a growing screech. Duck! The earlobed girl shouted and everyone did so as something whizzed by only to return to Izuku's hand, now covered, in dirt, feathers and a nail or two. That better sensei? Izuku asked. Aizawa smiled. This kid. Much better. Whatever you did. Keep it up. Izuku sallied and returned to his spot, only to realize others were staring at him. The bird-headed boy and frog girl stepped up to him and both said. Awesome. Mina then raced towards Izuku. 2 pairs of horns. She squealed. I am so jelly, Izzy. Hearing that nickname, Izuku felt warm. He then saw his visor and headphones being held up by a flating empty uniform with a bust. Here, you dropped these. A soft voice mentioned. Izuku smiled warmly. Thank you. Hagakure. Turu. The suit Asnerd. Dude. How manly are you? Did you freaking throw that ball around the world and back? Yes he did. Aizawa said. And for shouting? You're up. Half an hour later, all the tests were done. You're all welcome to go home now or after lunch, but be at 8 o'clock sharp tomorrow morning. We'll be starting right away. Meantime, I'll be napping. He then walked away, leaving the students standing there in shock, awe, and some confusion. Oh, and no one's getting booted. Aizawa mentioned offhandedly. Wait, you thought he was serious? The maturely bullet girl asked. It was a ruse to get us to go all out. Sorry, guess I should have said something. Yes. You should have. Many students shouted. Thank God. The short boy, Minoru Mineta, praised. I'm not going have to say goodbye to ogling all these hot. The temperature suddenly became chilling and Mineta turned to see Izuku coldly glaring at him. Mineta, was it? Allow me to explain a few things. I have been raised by a single mother my whole life. I have seen how some guys look at and view women, so when I see someone lustful, I am immediately on edge. I know that's not fair, you're in this class so clearly you want to be a hero, but please, control yourself, or I will gladly be expelled for what I do. He then realized his entire class had seen that whole thing and chuckled weakly. My name's Tsuyu Azui and I always say what's on my mind. The frog-like girl said. Midoriya. You're kind of weird. Izuku held his head in shame. Yeah, I get that a low. But you seem nice and cool too. Izuku's head shot up. While you could have handled that better, the maturely bullet girl mused with a smile. It is nice to see a gentleman in this class. Izuku became shy. Like I said, single mom raised me. The girl's eyes then widened. Wait, Midoriya. As in, Inko Midoriya. All of the girls and the glittering boy turned to Izuku. Why yes. Oh my goodness. She's my idol. The girl said. My parents, the Yairozas, once had her model for their latest health chain, she was so nice and kind-hearted. And so pretty. Toru and Ochako cooed together. Izuku smiled. Yeah she is, and she's the best mom I could have asked for. Liking of Izuku went up exponentially that day. Minus denying Mineta and Kaminari any model's numbers, Izuku quickly became very popular in his class and when everyone said goodbye, he was almost proud of this day. Just one thing to do first. Izuku teleported to hell, straight into Charlie's room. I'm sorry. They said together. Wait, what? You're sore, I was the one who, okay knock that off. Zoophobia deserves a TV show. Their eyes glistened with tears. I missed you. I missed you too. I'm sorry. The siblings hugged each other, Charlie peppering Izuku's face with kisses and Izuku nuzzling his nose with his sister. The others saw the whole thing but just watched, happy and relieved to see this. For a good hour, all was quiet. Hey, Nei-san. Izuku asked. Yeah. Remember the one part of Lulu world I never wanted to see? The circus? What? No, I liked the circus. The other part. Charlie thought for a minute, before it came to her. Oh, that one. She mused. The one that, well, our extended family is the highlight of. Do you think that, maybe, we could go and see it? Izuku asked. We could bring everyone else, call it an activity for redemption. Hey. We don't need an excuse to go to Lulu World. Angel beamed. Yes you do. Vaggie reminded the troublesome patron. We'll talk. Charlie promised. But right now? I have to say, I am so proud of you. Izuku smiled and hugged her back. Izuku came home late that night and was greeted by a warm hug from Inko, along with a great big serving of katsudon. How was your first day? She asked as they ate. Mine was kind of boring. Izuku smiled. I think high school is going to be way better for me. I've already made a couple of friends and... He suddenly paused. Izuku? Inko asked in concern. I think I might have a possible crush. Inko stopped thinking, then smiled and teared up as she began to squeal. She then saw her son's face and recomposed herself. You can tell me about the lucky person when you're ready. Izuku smiled sheepishly. But you must tell me about these friends of yours. And so he did, starting with Tsuyu, then Ichiro. By the end of the night, Inko knew one thing for sure. High school would be far better for Izuku than the rest of his schooling had been. The first greatest fear was faced the very next day. Choose a class rep by lunchtime. Aizawa said bluntly, exhaustion from his midnight patrol obvious as he collapsed into his sleeping bag. Immediately, almost everyone had been clamoring for the position, save for Izuku and the rock-headed boy, Kuji. The green-haired boy racked his brain, trying to figure out who was best suited to lead his class. Momo seemed to have a good head on her shoulders and was quite friendly. Hitoshi had also garnered his favor by erasing the memories of his less-than-ideal reveals, never mind not prying into them. Then our hero recalled how Kyoka, the girl with ear jacks, had tried to stop everyone from poking their noses into his, Mina and Kirishima's past. Speaking of his crush and her friend, Izuku didn't deny he loved their passion and eagerness, something he wished he had and that reminded him of Charlie. Ochako seemed interested and her kindness was clear to all, along with the invisible girl Toru. Tsuyu had said she wouldn't mind the position but also didn't seem to be hung up on it. Ojiro, the tailed boy, was quiet along with Shoto, the scarred peppermint boy and Fumikage, the raven-headed boy. Sato, Shiro and Shuji, maybe. They seemed laid back but focused. Denki, the electric manipulator and Yuga, the laser belly button boy. No. Just no. It wasn't that Izuku didn't hate them, they just seemed too eccentric. That and Mineta had too much sway on Denki. If elected, I'll make the girls' skirts shorter. And then there was Mineta. Mineta, what did I say yesterday? Izuku snapped at the shortest student, his demon form manifesting before recomposing himself and shooting his classmates an apologetic look. Sorry, I'm sorry, force of habit. Luckily for Izuku, this just made the girls in his class respect him even more if the smiles were any indication. Why don't we just vote? Hitoshi asked. Then everyone will vote for themselves. Denki remarked, but Hitoshi ignored him. The others smeed to agree with the brainwasher, and so. 5 minutes later. How in the hell/home did I get so many votes? Izuku and Hitoshi shouted together, awestruck that they each had the same number of votes. Before they could resign, the bell rang for lunch. Well, guess I'm stuck with it. Izuku mused. Well, guess I'm stuck with it. Hitoshi sighed aloud. The two boys looked at each other in shock, shrugged and then headed for lunch. Hey! Class reps! Over here! Izuku did not need to be told twice when he saw Ochako waved him and Hitoshi over, but Hitoshi stood in place. Shinsho? The green-haired boy asked. You go on ahead, I think I'll eat alone. Hitoshi said. School. Izuku guessed. Hitoshi nodded, smirking. Don't suppose you'd have any idea what that's about, a nice guy with a quirk like yours. I was bullied by everyone. Izuku cut him off. My quirk only manifested last year. Hitoshi's eyes widened. So, this lucky kid had lived his life as a quirkless? Izuku nodded. I'm scared, to be honest. Our hero confessed. My only friends were my mom, my sister, her girlfriend, an old babysitter and that guy I mentioned you made everyone forget. So, I have no clue what to do and how I'm not going to screw up. Hitoshi was hating himself for doubting this guy even more now. But then I remember something my sister told me, how will you know if you don't try? So come, Shinsho, sit and eat with us, I mean, a hero does need to be socialable. Alright. You got me. Hitoshi smirked. You sure you don't have some kind of guilt quirk, or something? Izuku shook his head as he and Hitoshi sat down. No, but my sister kind of does, sorry for the wait, everyone. Aizu convinced me to be sociable, which we're both rusty at. Hitoshi explained. Please be patient and gentle. That's our class rep, for you. Ochako beamed. What's this about being rusty? Toru asked. A cute and strong boy like you. Izuku blushed and poked at his katsudon. My quirk didn't awaken until last year, so. He started, missing the looks of shock on his classmates aside from Hitoshi. Well, they missed out. Shuji said. The ignorant followers of Light and Flash will be blinded by your dark awesomeness. Fumikage followed. I've got to ask, who voted for me? Izuku asked. And why? Surprisingly, almost everyone rose their hands. The only one who didn't was Shoto, who was sitting by himself. He has a lot on his mind. Momo said. Perhaps another time. But to answer your question, Izuku, well, quite frankly, I think your gentlemanly nature is an asset. And you would know about assets. Mineta smirked, only to be glared at by both Momo and Izuku, and feeling the glare of Shoto. You were man enough to do what I couldn't. Kirishima explained. You're the strongest here. Denki followed up. But you're also smart. Ojiro said. Before anyone could inquire as to how he knew that, he pulled out his phone and played an excerpt from Present Mix radio show which had Izuku breaking down several quirks and offering alternate ways of using them, and that was formed 3 years ago. It was my hobby. Izuku confessed. I thought I didn't have a quirk, so. Dude, please say you'll help us with analysis assignments. Mina begged. Of course. Was Izuku's immediate response, before the others continued giving their reasons for choosing him to lead. I heard you listening to Carlos Santana and figured if you liked good music, were strong and smart you'd be great. Kyoka followed. Plus it's no contest, it was either you or Momo. The raven-haired and ponytailed beauty blushed. You saved my life, how could I not? Ochako added her own 2 cents. The rest gave similar responses. And me? Hitoshi found himself asking. Similar responses followed in suit, but most had voted for him due to the fact he had been the one to handle situations that, if left unattended, would have made Izuku an outcast. Plus, as teenagers we may need blunt orders sometimes and Hitoshi can do that. Tsuyu added, with Momo nodding. And Izuku seems a little too nice. I don't know how to respond to that. The brainwasher confessed. On one hand it was better than being called a future villain, but still. You know how blunt Tsuyu is. I'm sure she doesn't mean anything. Momo assured him. You got a great power and I can tell you want to help. Kuji said. Wait, you can talk. Almost everyone asked. The greatest dream came right after lunch. I am here. Izuku and his classmates' eyes widened in anticipation as the door was swung open. Coming through the door like a normal person. And there he was in all his glory, their idol, the legend himself. All Might. Hell. Many in Pentagram City and in all the circles of Hell grimaced or cursed at that voice. Some because they'd been ruined by its owner, others because they hated heroes in general. Surprising all, however, was the reaction of one Sirpentious, who was out purchasing materials to upgrade the bots Izuku had donated. Dropping the minimum amount of mons for a drink, the crime lord rose a glass and cheered the symbol of peace. A toast to the man who toppled the bastard who ruled over or killed so many of us. May he teach the prince Sisamething worthwhile. This sparked some talk among the sinners and demons, many finding themselves reluctantly agreeing with the snake, who was meanwhile finding himself wandering down memory lane and fighting back a tear or two as a little boy filled his mind. Son. He mused, hurriedly downing his drink before rushing to finish his shopping. Earth. Now, I imagine all of you wish to dive into heroic studies, but this is still the first week of class and we here at UA know it will take a bit of time to get used to everything. All Might explained, then filling with embarrassment. There was an unfortunate incident with the 3rd years and 13, so the locations of said training are in need of repair. Elsewhere in UA, both Cementos and 13 groaned in irritation along with the big 3 of UA, Mirio Togata, Nijire Hado and Tamaki Yamajiki. I'm not apologizing. Tamaki said bluntly. Hell. The response to the number one hero's words was immediate. Boo. USCK, All Might. We wanna hear the prince kick butt. Vortex, wearing a Prince Izuku t-shirt, howled. Or kiss. A Scooby noted. Or that, yeah. The prince needs a real teacher. Imps in wrath bellowed, feeling no care for proper or intellectual aspects of heroism. All they wanted was the violence. They know he can't hear them, right? Angeldust asked from the break room at the hotel. Oh, let them have this, it's hell and no one cares. Vaggie sighed, her focus being on how Izuku would react to this change. From IMP's room in the Lulu World Hotel, Blitz tensed, feeling a kindred spirit. But oh, on the contrary, dear reader. Someone did care, she just only wants people to know/see what she wanted them to see. From her apartment and amid music blaring, the third and sole female of the V3 overlords, Velvet, twirled around in her chair, typing away on a phone before she twirled and faced the reader. How do you think I got to overlord level so quickly? She asked. After all, Alastor may be telling the story, but what good is a story without conflict? Conflict she could and would arrange with social media on both hell and earth. Speaking of said arrangements, Velvet pressed a send icon, delighted at the prospect of what she was doing. Dork HQ. Well, that could have gone better. Agent 2 mused as she poured herself and Agent 1 a hefty shot of bourbon. Her partner took the drink and downed it in one gulp as he recalled the past few hours. On the one hand, corporate was indeed taking them much more seriously, doubling their budget, giving them raises and paying out to all their deceased colleagues' families as well as the hefty bonuses for the janitors and better quality weapons. Badass as the Edo PRD was, they'd need the good stuff to get SHT done. On the other hand, sadly, while the footage of the attack was real, the members in corporate still refused to believe that the attackers were actual demons. Instead, they were convinced they were merely mutation quirk users, aside from Stolas, whom they mused was an emitter with mutation background, despite the fact Stolas was clearly a dead ringer for an actual recorded Prince of Hell and had outright confirmed his and Imp's place of origin. Well, it's a start at least. Agent 1 let out a sigh, taking a seat and letting out a groan. Agent 2 embraced him and patted his head and shoulder. If only we'd gotten some DNA or some SHT. In hindsight, yeah, they really should've. Perhaps I can be of service. The two turned to see a shorter, bald old man with a bushy mustache and surgeon goggles, pushing a box the size of one of the agents. I represent someone who knows all about these devils. The old man said. He's heard of your mission and would be delighted to provide you funding and equipment. Without a record, you must understand. He then produced an envelope one grabbed and tore open, revealing what looked like a contract of sorts addressed to someone named Mammon, first-class flight tickets to Japan, and checks with more zeros than either agent had seen addressed to Dork. Consider this part a gift. The doctor pressed a button, revealing a long-limbed Harlequin robot. Hey, hey, hey. Emma ready to play. The robot grinned in a voice eerily familiar to Alex Brightman. I got a few holy upgrades and can tell you where one uber important demon is. The two agents looked at their robotic minion, then the flight tickets and then each other. Water border laws in the face of saving the world anyways. Agent 1 mused, 2 following in suit. Unknown to them, right outside, 3 children-sized angels, 1 human and 2 lamb, overheard as well. Back at UA. So, let US instead start this class with a question: what is the most important aspect of being a hero? All Might asked, his smile dropping ever so slightly in hope that one of these kids would give him the answer he wanted, needed to hear. Overwhelming power and results. Shoto Todoroki answered. No. Was All Might's blunt response. Looking amazing as you battle villains? Yuga suggested. Not exactly what I was looking for, but that is important. Minimizing damage? Momo asked, Ochako nodding and hating herself for doing such. more damage meant more work for her parents. Another important bit, but not quite. Scoring with babes. Mineta grinned, then covering his mouth. No. Standing tall and not backing down. Kirishima shouted in pride. Oh, so close. Then he finally heard the answer he was looking forward to. Putting the worries of everyone at rest while smiling. Izuku and Mina had both said those words. Jinx. You owe me a pop. The girl beamed. Izuku chuckled happily as he blushed. Correct. All Might beamed. While the media focuses on the fights and rescues, you must never forget this guidance. Whenever you save anyone, they've probably gone through something terrible and need someone to look up to. That is why I smile, to ensure everyone knows that, as a hero, I am here to save the day. If nothing else, my students, remember these words, which I live by and which I learnt from my own mentor. Those who smile in life are the strongest, and a hero's smile can change everything for anyone they save. In hell. While many Izumina shippers had cooed at the two guessing the right answer, many in hell were pissed at All Might's words, a single thought filling most heads. Where was my help? Hearing those words, many of them remembered being wronged by still living folks and effed messages for IMP. When they came back from Lulu World, they would be swamped with business. The Magnus faced their second greatest fear over the weekend. Lulu World was Hell's first and greatest theme park, established by Lucifer mere days before the idea of Disneyland entered the mind of Walt Disney, or so he claimed. In a manner of speaking, Charlie was to thank for its creation, as the king and queen wanted her to have some semblance of fun in her childhood. Lulu Land, its shameless and poor ripoff under the management of Overlord Mammon, could be done in a day. Lulu World required a week to see most of what it contained, and that long list was still growing to this day on a nearly yearly basis. To say nothing of special events, like the celebration of monumental birthdays or Halloween. Speaking of the Magna family, Charlie held Izuku's hand as the two siblings, accompanied by Vaggie, Angel, Husk, Niffty, Sirpentious and Baxter made their way to the least popular attraction of Lulu World. The Antichrist Wax Museum, an exhibit dedicated to the beings that they were now destined to become one of. From the first time he had been brought to Lulu World, Izuku had avoided this place, a mix of fear and disgust filling him every time he came across it, worry that if he stepped in and saw even one of his predecessors, he was as good as one of them, either a villain or a failure. But now that his dream of becoming a hero was finally coming true, he had to see this exhibit, learn where they had failed and how he could avoid falling down their path. And with his sister by his side, his mother's assurances before he left and the knowledge he was for now at least going to be a leader, he was going in, no more bullshit or excuses. Charlie herself had similar reasons for coming here, like Izuku, she had never wanted to see this exhibit out of fear it would ensure her own dream was destined to fail. But if the hotel was going to succeed and she truly wanted to help redeem the souls that would come, she needed to learn from the mistakes of others. This place was as good as any, as much as she hated it. Luckily or unluckily, the gang was sidetracked when the youngest member of the party spied someone familiar. VERYYYY. Izuku beamed, breaking away from Charlie to hug who he saw. Octavia Gosha, who had been texting on her phone while contemplating where to go, especially if it meant she would not be in Blitz's sight, tensed. Only one person ever called her that, and here he came, racing towards her to give her a hug. Now, normally, Octavia was not one for physical contact. Or any kind of interaction that was not her father, to be honest. Sure, she had been to the Eldritch and Magna girls' parties and knew them and given the choice, much preferred Charlie, but otherwise, she was very much a lone wolf. Altoug Blitz's hellhound daughter Luna was cool, she mused. This one person was the sole exception. True, his curiosity could be annoying, but he was the closest to her in age, only being a few years younger than her. Plus, the fact he actually spent most of his time in the living/human world and would often tell her about it made him someone she could tolerate at the least. In a sight few ever got to see aside from her father, she smiled and accepted the hug he wrapped her in, much like a favorite babysitter, which she had been once or twice. "Hello, Izu." She smiled. What brings you here? Izuku's happy mood dampened ever so slightly. OSHT, is this hero related? Octavia guessed, seeing the party that accompanied Izuku. Thankfully, Alastor was once again indisposed and not present in person, but judging by the concerned looks on Charlie whom she gave a nod to, Vaggie and Baxter's faces. Well, yes and no. Izuku answered, then shaking away his unease to focus on seeing a familiar face. But forget about that, what are you doing here? Mum sent me here for a few days. Stella's new abode. The ex-princess was putting on her best face in order to hide the dread in her form. Someone has been getting a big head. And unlike that spider's comments to my daughter, your stupidity is threatening the balance of things. Lucifer Magna, the undisputed king of hell and a being so powerful her ex-husband was compared to an ant beside him, was in her dining room, sipping on some tea she herself had prepared and poured, since in her rage, she had fired most of her staff. My lord? She started. Don't talk, listen. Lucifer cut her off, motioning and waiting for her to sit down before he continued. Stolas is essential to how the universe works. Whereas you served your purpose the moment your daughter was born. She was rightfully offended by this, and if this were anyone else, Stella would have unleashed hell on them. But here, she held her tongue and listened. Confused? Allow me to explain it simply. Lucifer groaned, finding the tea rather, less than ideal. You see, Stella. Stolas and I. Contrary to human belief. We won't be around forever. A look overtook the king's face, one that seemed a myriad of emotions, sadness, acceptance, annoyance, and then shifted to one of joy and adoration. When that day comes, our daughters will take over where we left off. Now, my Lily also has a role in the grand scheme, one which it seems dear Izuku will be taking over from her, even if he doesn't realize it yet. The look of adoration shifted to one of annoyance as the king of hell continued his tirade against Stella. But you? You are nothing. You were a rich and pretty breeding partner for Stolas to create and secure his legacy. Nothing more. Nothing less. So, when I learned you planned to have Stolas killed, let me clarify something else. Yes, I pay little attention to the affairs of hell, the point is for all below to suffer, so I do not give a whit about most, especially since almost none of them ever come close to rivaling me outright, unless they may threaten the human world, in which case, well, I get to show just why dear old dad still considers me going Rouge's biggest failure. He then whistled and smiled evilly, looking upwards. Oh, Cain. The snake on his hat slithered onto the table and grew 3 times its size, saliva dripping from its mouth as it slithered toward Stella. Now, don't fret. You're not dying today. Lucifer assured her as he made to take his leave. But will no doubt probably wish you were dead. What happened next had consequences. On the one hand, Stolas was now safe. On the other hand, Stryker lost his cash cow and now would direct his efforts to F up Lucifer's son. But that is for another time. Lucifer had other goals at the moment, checking on his children as they did something they had avoided for so long for starters. And then chuckling at the reason Izuku at least had avoided for so long. The humans are so convinced I'll want him to open the gates of hell. Lucifer mused. So literal, those idiots. Lucifer did want to triumph over his father. But to destroy Earth and humanity? Why in the multiverse would he do that? They were his primary means of entertainment and power. Sure, he could use any of the other races, but they weren't as fun. Besides, he played a role in their creation and few creators ever wished to see their works come to harm. No, instead, Lucifer's insidious plan was to merely destroy the very idea of good and evil. And with his children soon to shake up the world. He might just succeed this time, even with Mammon and the Overlord's upcoming interference. Lulu world. But I ran into IMP. Octavia continued her story as she and Izuku turned to see IMP begging Charlie to show them mercy, thinking she was still angry they chickened out of killing Katsuki. I'm still peeved about that. Charlie admitted, despite everything. You could have at least crippled him. Well, now that you mention it. Blitzo realized. Sir, please. Moxie groaned, not being in the mood for this but managing a smile and waved to Izuku along with Millie. Luna looked up from her own phone and shot Izuku a wave as well before raising said phone to Octavia to show she was now following her and bringing even more of a smile to the owlet. See, he gets it. Angel mused, handing Blitz his card and winking flirtiously at him and Moxie before Millie growled at him. Ah dang. All the good ones are taken. Nay-san, it's fine. Izuku called out, then spying Octavia's confused look. Oh, she put a hit on my former best friend turned bully. Oh. Octavia turned to her phone. Dad, could you help me torture somebody, or is that not something we can do? No, no, no. Izuku pleaded, trying to pull the phone back. That's not necessary. He's not in his dream school, he's halfway across Japan and his permanent record has a huge black mark on it. Plus, he's appending for suicide baiting me and I said too much, haven't I? Silence, and then. Dad, go through with it, and make sure it violates every part of his being. Now you see why I like her. Charlie beamed, the others nodding in agreement. Please don't, Stola's SAN. Izuku begged. Wait, is this about that Katsuki boy Blizty was telling me about? Well, sorry to burst your bubble Princey but, he's no longer appending. Sides, it's either me Advia right now, or you in 9 years. Izuku opened his mouth but found himself unable to say anything. Octavia on the other hand was curious. What does he do? Oh, nothing much. Stola said, but before he could give more details, Izuku desperately cut in. Is there a way to change that? Actually, yes. Stola said. Oh, come on, Dad. Octavia groaned. Octavia, sweetie. Respect Izuku's wishes. Stola's then whispered. At least while he's looking and listening. I can hear you. Izuku hollered. Just wait and do whatever you feel you can, Izuku. The Owl Duke said. But. Octavia, Lucifer and I reserve the right to curse him when the time comes. Fair enough. Izuku mused, knowing it was the best he could get. His smile returned as Octavia messed with his hair. Well, when you're done with you got to do, come and find me and Loons. She smiled, then glancing around and producing a notebook. Could. Izuku happily signed the notebook and took a selfie with Octavia, then one with Luna and then with the imps of IMP before they separated. He then took a deep breath and took Charlie's hand as they stepped in. First up, the most successful which, to the surprise of all, was the wizard Merlin of Arthurian legend. Wait, what? Izuku, Angel and Pentious all asked in confusion. Oh yeah, not all of these folks are related to us. Charlie explained. I mean, Dad adores Mom and yeah Izu and I do have some half-siblings, but you need to remember that Dad is technically under Satan, who is the god of hell. Charlie, maybe we should. Vaggie started, her love catching on. Okay. In short, Antichrist refers to anyone who lived on earth and has the BLD of a devil, not necessarily Dad or Satan, in their veins. And Mab, Merlin's creator, was essentially the devil of Fey folk, so, yeah he counts. And look at all the good he did, Izu. With that revelation, the Magnus siblings felt as if a weight had been lifted from their shoulders, and kicked themselves for dreading this for so long if not everyone here was related to them. Then came the main reason they had dreaded coming here, Damien Thorne, whose statue did not detract how creepy he was. Arguably the most successful Antichrist, he had held the president's ear and very nearly accomplished all of his goals before being lured into a church and fatally stabbed. At least, that's officially what happened. For his death date was still blank. He's still alive. Husk and Vaggie asked in shock. Yeah, apparently he was picked up and rushed to a hospital at the last second. Charlie reminisced. He's been living on Earth just to spite Nazarani. Crippled and hooked up to tubes though. Unknown retirement home. FF, the nearly 250-year-old Damien managed to curse through his oxygen mask from his bed. Back to the exhibit. Woland was next. Wait, that book was tellin' the truth? Angel asked. You've read the MSTR and Margarita? Husk asked, honestly surprised. What? Russian authors know how to write a great book. Husk's liking of Angel went up ever so slightly. Izuku glanced at the information about the man. While wrapped in mystery, there was enough symbolism to draw a comparison to the Son of God or his most devout disciple, and while Woland had only stayed in a small town and had many imitators, most which didn't even know who he was, he most certainly left his mark, what with commanding the likes of vampires and a giant talking cat for starters. Izuku made a mental note to find an online summary of the book and possibly one of the movie adaptations. From what he had heard/seen, Russian literature was epic in length and he'd need to focus on his studies, along with other things. Next up was Adolf Hitler. As it turns out, while born a human, Hitler had been possessed by a demon long enough for it to be considered with him for life. That and the horrendous acts he committed all but guaranteed his spot. As horrible as hell's denizens are, and even with a few sharing Hitler's beliefs, even demons were rather put off by the Holocaust. I knew it. Husk and Angel roared together. Adrian, aka Rosemary's Baby, had been killed in a gang shooting. Lucas Bloom was, in Izuku's mind, what he could have been, created for Antichristum but raised by a loving mother and after a few others loving stepfather who saved him from the cult that created him. Lucas was still alive, like Damien, although he was only in his 40s, living as a small-town librarian. Next up was Mr. Shatan, aka Santa Claus. I knew. Baxter and Pencha started. No. Not that Santa. A different one. Charlie cut off. Seeing the shocked looks on their faces, she explained. There are two Santas, the Saint Nicholas adored by children all over the world and one of Satan's kids. Seeing the confused looks, and in her brother's case, relived look, she continued. From what Mom and Dad told me, this Santa was the result of a version BRTH produced by Satan. Christmas was the day of slaying for Santa until AD 1005, when an angel defeated him in, I kid you not, a curling match and sentenced him to deliver presents on Christmas for 1,000 years. He was beaten in by the same angel in 2005, but since he's not down here. Well, Angel sighed, motioning Charlie to continue. Lucius, a serial killer as a child, suffered a similar fate to Damien. One of the few exhibits Izuku had looked forward to seeing was Hellboy. The information card revealed he had fraternal twin children who had returned to the BPRD and were following in their father's legacy, and they were in the prime of their youth. Suddenly, the banging of hammers and buzzing of saws ended the sense of wonder and education. Poking their heads over a wall, the siblings saw that Charlie's exhibit was halfway done, and there was an unexpected patron standing in front of said exhibit. Mom? Charlie asked. Lilith was brought out her musings by her daughter's voice and adopted a warm smile. Charlie dearest, what are you doing here? She then hugged her daughter before spying her beloved's youngest child, who tensed up at her but managed to utter. Hello, Auntie Lilith. The poor boy's relationship with Auntie Lilith was complicated. Years ago. Do it. Lilith commanded 8-year-old Izuku as he coughed and gagged on the funny long black and white toothpick, SCK on the cigarette, my little darling. Life is SHT, get used it. Present day. Hello Izuku. Lilith cooed, kneeling, and pecking him on the forehead, making him blush. Here to learn about the others? Izuku simply nodded, not sure how to feel about being killed by his sister's strikingly appealing mother, aside from the fact he knew Mineta would call him a lucky BSTRD if he ever found out. Your timing is perfect actually. Lilith mused. They haven't gotten your figures in yet, your father wants them to look perfect. That small bit filled the two siblings, even Izuku, with some happiness at the idea that Lucifer cared enough to want good statues of them. But they do have your info, if you're interested. The siblings looked over to where said information usually was, but all they found were mirrors next to their names. They started together. Just press your hand to your name and you'll see. Lilith explained. No one else will see, and until you either accomplish your destinies or die here, all that people will see is your name, date and BRTH and dreams. Not even Lucy know what the future hold for you two, and anything else will be illegible to anyone you don't trust or who will not be important in your life. Charlie and Izuku really tried to fight the temptation, they really did. They were proud of what they were doing and wanted to take things as they came. Besides, with their friends and Vaggie here, never mind Alastor's likeliness to broadcast whatever Izuku saw, which could be used against him. I'll do no such thing until you're ready. The radio demon's voice suddenly manifested in Izuku's head. Also, do tell Angel he has excellent taste in books. Chuckling at this, Izuku gave Charlie a look. She in turn gave him one. They nodded, cusped hands, and did as Lilith had instructed. What they saw would change their fates forever. Charlie saw souls ascending the skies of hell and flying towards heaven, while she, dressed like her father and with a proud smile, watched on with a bundle in her arms, and Satan himself bowing to her, a smile on his face. Izuku's was sadly, not as pleasant, accompanied by what looked like a black lamb cherub. It lacked the halo. Izuku stood atop the bloodied and battered body of the giant he had helped, wearing Vox's head as a necklace with one of his hands aflame. People seemed to be cheering him, but their expressions seemed forced, and Izuku had tears rolling down his cheeks as he smiled. Then the image changed to something morbid. Here lies Izuku Midori Magna. Beloved prince, brother, son and hero. But what got our hero's attention? The date he died was only 10 years away. Sizzle. Turning back, he saw that a child had flung something into his grave, what looked like flaming acid. The child had bushy hair like his own and 6 horns on their head, 1 pair of ram horns, 1 pair of small antlers and 2 wisps of calicomized hair. And what they had flung onto his gravestone sizzled toe formed 2 words. And Papa. The child suddenly tensed and turned around, their eyes making contact with Izuku. And what appealing eyes they were, emerald like a Granny Smith apple offset by a gold and black scara. And the smile that accompanied those eyes. Izuku, now human again, found himself back home on Earth, his mother looking at him with a concerned look as his eyes were tearful. Vox smirked as he sipped some bourbon. You know, down in hell. We don't really give a SHT about holidays, all they are is a major money-making day, especially one coming up rather soon. He then rose from his seat and moved closer. Now, the author was going to post the next chapter, which so many of you have been expecting and wanting. But wouldn't you know it? Being a wage SLV? At Christmas? In grocery? Not much time and energy left. He chuckled. So. While he gets his SHT sorted out, Velvet and I took it upon ourselves to bring to you a little gift. Christmas is a long way coming in the actual story, but when they do get to it, well, if anything, Vel and I get to prove our lasting power in advance to you here and now. And you don't have to imagine SHT, unlike those morons listening to Alastor. He leaned down. So, look at my face. His face begins to distort into static. Sit back, and enjoy. This year has been crazy, let's not beat around the bush. Izuku said. But in the end? Charlie replied as she overlooked Pentagram City from the penthouse Hazbinhotel. Downstairs, sinners and demons alike are partying in the street much like people in the world above, with the clock tower's time covered by a sign that says, "Purging cancelled." This'll be my first Christmas with Izuku and Inko. Charlie squealed as she and the main gang packed before the scene cut to her hugging the Midoriyas. Not to mention a certain someone. Vaggie followed in suit as she lifted a small human with black and white hair into her arms before nuzzling her nose with theirs. Cars pull up to the UA dorm, with families stepping out and rushing in. Do you really think you can handle 2 parties at the same time? Tokoyami asked Izuku, now dressed in a luxurious tux. Just a quick in and out to pick up the gang. Our hero assured his friend as he summoned a portal. And to buy more time before meeting Mina's parents. Putting grudges aside. The scene cuts to the Magna Winter Ball, where Izuku does what few would think possible, glare at someone with utter contempt. Midoriya. Leviathan Vaughn Eldritch growled through his teeth as he glared at his ex-girlfriend's half-brother. Eldritch. Izuku returned in kind. Son. The two turned to see a grinning Lucifer, reaching for a hug with a surprisingly warm look on his face. Charlie and the Hazbin gang are greeted with cheer and applause instead of mockery before the scene then cuts to UA, where the Bakugo family walks in. Hey there, Dek. He found himself slammed to the ground by growling Class 1A. Oh come on. You're all still pissed about that SHT? Katsuki asked. Till the end of days, why unmanly BSTRD? Kirishima roared, with Inko glaring and nodding in turn along with Charlie. Santa's is back, Bess. A beefy sister-looking man growled as he threw candy canes into civilians' eyes before downing Wing and using a match to turn it into fuel for a fire he used to burn a poor soul to death. I got years of slaughter to catch up on, so I brought pals. Krampus snatches away children as a winter storm with horns and a face freezes plains and the oceans. At the same time, elves in black knight armor round up civilians. Santa then creates a ball of inert akin to a wreath and splits it, destroying every ice, hockey and curling rink on the planet. And no winter sport stopping me this time. Cut to our heroes watching the carnage from a TV screen. Well, so much for vacation. Shinsho sighed. You all knew the risks going in. Aizawa said as he sipped eggnog. Oh, yes. Blitzo grinned impishly as he watched this unfold in 666 news before brandishing 2 pistols. Loony. We're about to get a SHT ton of pay on the back clients. Heroes. All Might, dressed as the more traditional and adored Santa alongside Stars and Stripes, dressed similarly, let out a might laugh as they lead the top 10s of their nations. Dai Thai. Katsuki smirked evilly as he went ballistic down on elves, with Izuku, Kirishima and Shoto covering the civilians, while Izuku catches glances of Mina, with Ochako and Tsuyu's aid, using her now gravity-defying dance moves and acid to do damage. As Koji tried to talk to the Helldeer Bison, Momo and Jiro blast back away from a bell-headed villain with some help from Insana. Can't let 1A have all the fun, can we? Kendo asked her class, with the next shot focusing on revealing Shiozaki, now dressed akin to a preacher with a determined look on her face. Demons. Mott halves. Blitzo and Husk cackle together as they rain down heavy fire. Luna and Octatvia tore through elves alongside Vaggie and Cherry as Charlie rushes Krampus flaying his spiked chains. You can't save everyone, Fronelin. The goat-like villain smirked. At least I'm trying. The Princess of Hell retorted. Dorks. EA repressed Tama, ya little shits. Kid-friendly, my butt. 2 shouted as she SLT an elf's throat. Creepy Mall Santa experience. Turu guessed. Creepy Mall Santa experience. 1 replied. Villains. No one is stealing my spotlight again. Tamura growled as he reduced elves to ash with an enraged look on his face. Dobby unleashes a stream of fire against a taller villain that resembles an ice skeleton. With a deer skull for a head. Come together. Charlie, 1, Tamura and a now demonic Izuku shake hands before a thorny vine crawls in and an bright white light shines down on them, causing some steam to come from the demon's form. You can screw with heroes, but you don't. With the holidays. Twice hollered as he and Magna made a path of the aforementioned. In the goriest. Toga shanks an elf's chest open. Santa pulls a man's tongue out, along with the top of his head. Alastor devours elf bodies while dancing in their BLD. Sexiest. While the snow falls around them, Charlie ensnared Vaggie in a passionate kiss, as Moxie does with Millie. Neither couple has any visible clothes on. The 1A girls then appear dressed in CC Santa attire, along with Alastor, eliciting many cheers and jeers. Someone is dying tonight. Radio Demon promised. Izuku then spies Mina covering herself in a blanket with a gift bow on her head as they find themselves in a candlelit room. This has been all I wanted for a long time. Inko said as she overlooked her son, his half-sister and their friends hang out at the party, having a wonderful time. Alastor, his smile gone, is approached by a kind-looking woman, whose eyes were filled with nothing but adoration. We hope. The screen cuts to black before the next scene begins. Alright, I got a plan. Agent 1 exclaimed as the group hid behind a wall. I just need some paint cans, a long string, tar, rusty nails, toys cars, easy-to-break glass ornaments, a tarantula, some piping hot mac and cheese and a DVD copy of Angels with Filthy Souls. Everyone looked at him as if he had grown another head. Or. Momo suggested. We could just use our quirks and/or weapons dipped with the holy water Shiozaki provided. Almost everyone minus the demons mumbles in agreement. 1, I love ya, but, Ponytail with Rax got a point. Agent 2 sighed. My name is Creati. Momo screamed, a scandalized look on her face. No one uses codenames. 1 and 2 snapped. You two do. Denki and Mineta replied along with Blitzo and Moxie. Hell says happy holidays. Izuku, Shizukai, 1 and Blitzo take on Santa. Hazbin hero movie, holiday heroic havoc. The screen then frizzled, blacked oi and then on as voodoo symbols overtook it before picture returned. There stands the radio demon, standing in a battle-worn tux but with his infectious smile gazing at the reader as he stands atop Vox's beaten and battered form. Also. Alastor cut in. This tale is canon. He let that sink in. Well then, happy holidays, my dears. The screen then frizzled, blacked oi and then on as voodoo symbols overtook it before picture returned to the credits. Gluttony. The maul and dump of hell, where all ideas eventually end up and are ripe for the taking. Where lawyers go after they die. A ring of perpetually laziness, overindulgence, and materialism/commercialism. The ring where most sinners would want to go if they could leave the pride ring, even if it was a veritable battleground and free-for-all. Observe. Ever since the Izuku show began, one small section of the ring had become very popular, with hundreds of demons vying to take something from it, whatever came from Mustafu. Why? Well, Izuku living there was a major point, anything even remotely related to the demon prince training to be a hero could bring in the major moolah. That was why Velvet and the gang of Verosika Mayday were glaring at each other as the newest drop came, a small treasure chest this time instead of the usual garbage bag, hinting something in there was good. Wait a sec. Vortex cut in. Before we attack each other do the whole, tear ourselves to shreds and then eat out the other. The succubi laughed at that last part. Why don't we just open the chest first and see what's actually in it? It might not even be worth the trouble. The hellhound finished. I really can't afford to be too bruised up. Versoki amused, acting indifferent. In all honesty, she didn't have to be here. Vortex, however, had been so good at his job, she decided he deserved something special for his troubles, so here they were. And she was most definitely not trying to find Izuku's scrapped plans for any reasons of her own. Certainly not because of what had happened when he was 8 years old. Back to the story, a brief muttering among the gangs before one of the demons answered. K. After using her claws to pick the lock, Milky began to go over what she could make out. A rancid skunk butt rug, an All Might action figure missing an arm and leg with fading and peeling paint, a half-eaten Big Mac, a first-generation BlackBerry, tax receipts from Earth's 4 trillionaires from a decade ago, the first half of Casablanca on VHS, partly chewed bubblegum spat back into the wrap, the second half of Titanic on DVD, a Karopi and Hello Kitty calendar, the underwear of hero couple after 3 hours of Ben Jessie C, some crumpled papers from Prince Izuku's room. Okay, it's worth it. Velvet cut off before a fierce, bloody, gory, and hilarious battle began. But that is not why the hero of this tale and his guests are at this ring. Not today, at least. Izuku was here for a mix of education, entertainment and just hanging out with VERYYYY. So, how did I get talked into this? He asked from a judge's booth. And, how did we get Mom, Mirko, Midnight Sensei, and Mount Lady here? We haven't reached the post-sports festival. Up pup pup. A feathery finger from Stola's silenced him. No spoilers, young prince. Izu, just relax and unwind. Octavia smiled, enjoying being with her dad and old friend, and a part of her looking forward to what was about to come. Can we get this started? Miruko smirked as she rubbed her hands together. I skipped breakfast for this. I don't know why you're bothering, we all know who's going to win. Mount Lady added while Midnight simply smiled. We'll see, you too. We'll see. The 18-only heroine then turned her attention to a blushing Inko Midoriya, fidgeting in her chair. She felt so out of place here, 3 heroines and one of her son's escorts/friends in hell. Now, don't you worry, Mama Midoriya. Millie beamed. Just eat what you want and have fun. I mean, you look amazing, but when was the last time you really enjoyed what you ate? The imp assassin brought up a good point, Inko mused. She had stuck to her modeling diet for so long, she figured she deserved this. Suddenly, Stolas manifested a microphone and cleared his throat. Good morning, citizens of hell. Today, we take a break from brawls to enjoy the only thing from this ring we all look forward to seeing. Many chuckled at that. The Gluttony Gurgus Gourmet Eating Festival. Alternate names pending. Izuku cut in. No, they ain't. Octavia cut in. This year is especially special because we have heroes from the living world joining us. If you're asking how. This is an make, you silly humans, anything is possible. Prince Izuku, as you are more familiar with them, please do introduce our guests. Taking a deep breath, Izuku put on a smile and, manifesting a microphone of his own and with razzle and dazzle handling a spotlight, began to do just that. First off is my godmother, Namuri Kayama, the R-rated heroine, Midnight. Izuku said as Namuri grinned and waved, getting many hoots and hollers. I was there when he was born and ladies. Narumi smiled with a tease. He's gotten cuter. It's true. Inko and Millie added. Fighting back a blush and ignoring the many lustful looks he was given, Izuku continued with the introductions. Followed by the self-proclaimed hottest new hero, Yutakayama, aka Mount Lady. Izuku continued. Wait, if it's not me, then who's the hottest? You asked. The old hag. Midnight gritted her teeth, barely held back by Inko patting her hand. Nope. One of my classmates. Izuku said bluntly, making many burst into laughter and various shipping camps taking this as proof he and whomever they wanted him to be with were destined to be together. Oh, come on. You pouted in annoyance. Back on Earth, Mina Ashido blushed for some reason as warmth filled her heart. Mina? Ijiro asked his best friend. You okay? Why yeah, of course. Mina hurriedly replied. Just, felt like someone said something really nice about me. Izuku, somewhat proud of himself for bringing Mount Lady down a peg or two, continued with the introductions. And next, we have the top female hero in Japan. Please give it up for the tough and ready to rumble Rumi Usajiyama aka the rabbit heroine, Miruko. Many more cheers erupted as the top female heaped in the praise before shocking many by taking Izuku into an armlock and giving him a noogie. Thanks for the intro, kid, huge fan of the show. Wait, you, listen to the show. Meanwhile, Alastor whistled innocently as he handed off records to a human who worshipped him. Vaggie and the hotel staff did not look amused but said nothing else. Izuku suddenly found himself pulled out of Rumi's arm and spied his mother glaring at her. Please refrain from being so friendly with my baby, Inko said before returning to her sweet normal self. Izuku, sweetie. You can skip me. No one wants to know about little old Inko. I beg to differ. We love you, Mamadori. Why could you be my mother? Many demons wailed. Inko blushed and retreated into her seat, with Izuku smiling before finishing up. And last, but certainly not least. My mother, Inko. Cheers erupted as Izuku made his way back to the judge's stand as Stolas came up. Let us not forget the hell local taking place in this event. Stolas cut in. From my darling Blitzies. Not in public. Immediate murder professionals, Millie. Many Wrath citizens cheered for the local, with her family and Moxie being the loudest and Millie blowing her husband a kiss. Now in previous years, Princess Charlotte would be joining us as well. Stolas began, delightfully chuckling when many Gluttony residents screamed and begged for it not to be. But she is otherwise preoccupied with her hotel. Many sighed in relief. Izuku? Explanation. Narumi asked. Charliemorningstar has been banned from this contest ever since. Izuku started, then paused to find the right words. That unfortunate incident, on my 8th birthday. Many shuddered in recollection. Hearing that, Charlie beamed as she pulled out a wall, revealing several centuries worth of trophies and pictures of her at various ages with messy mouths and hands. Ah, I miss those days. The Princess of Hell smiled. How? Most of the staff asked. You're thin as a rail. Angeldust gawked. 3 words. Vaggie said. Anime. Protagonist. Metabolism. Boo. Many said in understanding. Also, Angel. Charlie said as she made a portal. I'm not thin. I'm petite. Angeldust waited until she left to ask aloud. What's the difference? Rules are simple, so no need to explain. The second Izu flings some fire, start pigging out. Octavia groaned. The first one to finish everything wins. Of course, since this is the ring of gluttony, food is hardly scarce. In fact, Beelzebub himself will be acting as proctor and food provider. Stolas said. The demon lord and embodiment of gluttony, a turkey-like demon marched forward, speaking like a certain lovable cartoon rooster. I say, nothing like some lovely ladies cleaning their plates and getting stuffed for all of Ozzy's kids in the lust ring to gawk over. Izuku fired into the sky to silence Beelzebub, who took that as his cue to start getting the food ready. The ladies all got ready and soon began digging in as fast as they could. Inko was unsurprisingly the first one to drop out, considering she ate the food provided to her with manners and grace and tapped out when she felt full, stifling a petite belch as she scooched her chair back to continue watching the other ladies feast. And Inko has dropped out. But she did her best and we appreciate her being here all the same. Octavia said as the crowds all clapped, making the VERYYYY matriarch blush. Midnight and Mount Lady were glaring at each other, their stomachs already having bloated into pot bellies and their hero costumes getting rather snug. Unlike you, I can fit in way more than this. Nemuri snarled. Don't be mad if I eat what you plan to first. You seethed back. Rumi felt her chair creaking under her growing butt and turned to Millie, who was looking quite round herself. Not bad, you're really putting it away. Hey, my family often struggles so we don't take food for granted. I hear that. 3 hours later. It's done. The winner is, Millie. Izuku cheered as everyone screamed in cheers, Moxie and Millie's family being the loudest. GUHURK. Midnight groaned as she leaned back, her chair struggling to support her massive girth. Her HNDCFFS dug into her fat wrists as the garter belt detailing on her thighs snapped apart thanks to her tanker-sized legs. Her belt lay on the ground, having burst off her bulging belly. NOYUURP. You belched out loudly. She was now massive without needing to have to activate her quirk. Her belly roared loudly as her jowls bulged a bit. Phew, why you beat me. Rumi sighed, patting her massive stomach with her hammy hands, feeling a sense of satisfaction in her own inflated form. Her chair had broken underneath her girth a long time ago and she turned to Millie, who was now much larger than normal with a nice round gut, thick arms and legs, a chair-crushing posterior, a pinchable soft face, and a triumphant look in her eyes as she was handed the champion's belt. Moxie quickly ran over and hugged his wife happily, feeling a sense of pleasant satisfaction at how soft she was now. Millie giggled and rubbed her head over her husband's horns and hair as Rumi heaved herself up, slapping her gut and letting out a loud, proud, and unashamed burp. Man, you certainly put it away, Mills. Me, you, and Nem couldn't keep up. This ain't my first eating contest, Rumi. I've entered a few before. Millie giggled as Moxie laid himself out against her mass, a content and dazed smile on his face as he purred like a cat who found its perfect sleeping spot. Ugh, I feel like I'm gonna have to roll to move around now. Namuri groaned as Inko moved over to rub her belly. Oh, that's nice. Thanks, Inko. Anything for a friend. Ugh, GG me. You groaned as she leaned her head back, trying to soothe her belly ache as she slowly got up, looking down at herself. It's going to take decades to work this off. Ah, chin up, ya big baby. Rumi laughed, slapping Yu's big peach, making her squeak and turn beet red in her chubby face. You look great. Heh, beauty is skin deep, my weight means nothing. Namuri chuckled as she got up, slinging her marshmallowy arm around Inko, who squeaked in embarrassment at being pressed against such soft blubber. Says you. You snapped, poking her pudgy finger into Namuri's gut, making her chuckle before a burp erupted from her throat. Rumi got behind you and jiggled her belly with a grin. Hey, a lot of people would love to feel all this. The rabbit. Heroine said as you squealed, followed by a slew of burps and belches at the cauldron that was her stomach being unsettled. Stop HURP it. IBRP mean it BWRAAP. Hey, guys can't have all the fun. Even girls need to let it out. Rumi laughed as she slapped her own belly, letting out a truly massive and victorious-sounding belch. Says the queen. Heh, you gals are just so funny. Millie giggled before blushing when she felt her belly rumbling loudly, followed by a hiccup. DMN, how am I still hungry? Huh, no idea, Rumi said, shrugging her chunky shoulders before smirking. Wanna see if we can stuff ourselves into immobile blobs? As ceasy as that would be, please don't. Namuri sighed as you looked nervous at getting any fatter than she already was. Do it. Blitzo called from the bleachers. Sir. Moxie shouted, getting off Millie to snap at his boss. His wife, being the more understanding of the two, smiled. With all due respect, Blitz, I don't want to let my skills as an assassin go to waste. Millie giggled. Booed. I can think of a few things me and Mox can get into with this blubbery bod. Moxie's nose began bleeding as his brain literally short-circuited. If you're gonna do that KNKYBBW stuff, take it to the ring of lust, sheesh. Luna groaned, rolling her eyes as Millie's family gathered around her to congratulate her on her victory. DMN, sis. You really know how to put it away, huh? Sally Mae chuckled as she slapped Millie's belly, causing her to belch before giving her sister a dirty look. Hey, only Mox gets to touch that. Yes, I do. Moxie said as he hugged Millie close, despite his wife now being much larger than him or even Blitzo put together. Oh, Moxie dot. Alwu dot. Inko cooed as Izuku and Octavia smiled from the stands, only for Blitzo to turn to the young prince. So, when are you finally going to ask that pink chick out? And with that, this make is done. Izuku announced as the scene cut to black. Wait. Don't cut to black. How am I gonna lose this weight? You cried desperately. We'll lose it in the next chapter. Just enjoy it, ya brat. Namiri barked, slapping Yu's belly, making her let out one last undignified belch before the chapter ended. Alastor then manifested in the black void that followed. As his mother explained, Izuku had fainted at the sight of whatever he had seen in his future and IMP had hurriedly returned him home, where he had slept for an entire day. Due to the way their displays were being built, neither Charlie nor Lilith could peer into whatever the boy had seen and Alastor refused to break the mental promise he had made with Izuku. About the radio demon, who had now taken up residence at the hotel after spending a few days with Rosie and Missy as they caught up on the good days, his mood seemed to fluctuate whenever the subject came up. If it were any of the guests or staff that asked, he'd initially be chomping at the bit to reveal what he had seen before remembering his professionalism and denying them any details. However, if it was Charlie who inquired, his mood would dampen and he would go quiet. So here our hero was, playing with his breakfast of almighty cereal guaranteed to be 90% sugar. As the haunting images played over and over in his head, people smiling out of fear of him, his gravestone, and his child. Honey, can talk to me, right? Inko had cooed worriedly. Izuku didn't respond. How the hell was he supposed to talk to her about this? Despite his origins and her elation of his bond with Charlie, Izuku knew that if his mother had possessed any strictness in her, he'd never have so much as entertained the idea of being a hero. If she found out he was to not even live to be 30, never mind make her grandmother to a child he would never know. And that child was the main reason for Izuku's unease. It was not their appearance that bothered the boy so. He thought his child was appealing. And by the way they appeared and how they had flung what looked like hell acid. It seemed, nay, it was almost guaranteed that he had a chance with Mina. But then he'd recall that he wasn't in the picture at that point. This made him question himself. He knew, going through the Antichrist Wax Museum, that happy endings were few and far between for his kind. But at least the ones before him rarely left someone behind. Call it daddy issues if you would, but Izuku did not like the idea of leaving his child behind, forcing them to live in his shadow. Elsewhere, Shoto Todoroki felt a smidge of kinship with someone. Izuku Midoriya. Inko called her son out of his musing with a firm voice. When she saw she had his attention, she smiled softly and kissed his forehead. I know whatever you saw scared you. And I probably won't understand or like whatever it was. But. She smiled as brightly as she could, emulating her son's hero. I am here. Izuku chuckled, which turned to laugh when Inko tickled his cheeks until he was smiling that smile she adored so much. I am here to talk and help. She repeated herself. I'm your mom, after all. Izuku smiled and brought her into a hug. Thanks, Mom. Inko just smiled and returned the gesture, fighting back tears as she remembered when he was barely up to her knees. Now he was a full head taller than her. Anything for my baby. Now finish your breakfast, something tells me you've got a big day today. Izuku hurriedly finished the meal his mother prepared, grabbed his lunch money and, after kissing her on the cheek, raced towards the train station. Little did our hero that would be the final, normal, morning of his life. Today's lesson is rescue training. Aizawa announced. Go get your hero costumes and meet me at the bus. The kids dashed out the door and raced to their lockers and then the change rooms, all exist and happy. All that is, but one. Alastor. An enraged Izuku's voice suddenly roared to the heavens, shaking UA itself. HazbinHotel. The radio demon chuckled. He'll thank me for this later. UA. Izuku was the last to arrive at the stop, dressed in a tuxedo. Interesting choice. Hitoshi noted in a costume not unlike Aizawa's. This is not my costume. Izuku growled. It was in my locker. He then pulled out a notebook and turned to a picture. This was supposed to be my costume. What was on the page was a green one-piece costume with goggles, gloves, an air mask, and very all-might/bunny-like horns. Wait, if that's not our costume, then. Audrey started, confused. I have my suspicions, said Izuku as his anger turned into slight embarrassment. Sorry, well, Mom and I made that together. Aw. The girls and Kuji cooed. Shoto, for the briefest of seconds, smiled as Izuku took another look at his attire. Then again, I do kind of look like Charlie this way. Hazbinhotel. Oh. Charlie, Vaggie, Niffty and even Cherry cooed at Izuku's point. Lilith herself did the same from her and Lucifer's bedroom, while her husband smiled, very appreciative of Alastor giving his son a nice suit instead one of those tacky costumes. Ua. Well, I think you look cool, Izu. Ochako said. Izuku turned to see his classmate in a very form-fitting spacesuit. In fact, minus Kyoka, none of his female classmates' costumes did anything to hide their figures. Best day ever. Mineta beamed, only for Izuku to bonk him on the head. I regret nothing. See? A true gentleman. Momo smiled. Just for today, Ribbit. Tsuyu added. Probably a mix-up. Doubtful. Izuku grumbled under his breath, only for Mina to come over and glance at his costume design. Hey, what about your actual horns? She asked. Huh. You know. I never thought about that. Izuku realized, and then he spied Mina's costume, pink tiger skin, feathered boa, vest and boots. Like it? Been on my mind since I was a kid. The pink-skinned girl smiled. With a blush from both seeing his crush so close to him and what he was about to reveal, Izuku muttered. Mine, T2. Mine too, Midori bro. Ejiro beamed, revealing a rather minimal costume. Still, I gotta admit, you rock the badass in a nice suit look. The others nodded or muttered in agreement before Aizawa called them to get in the bus. You know. Suddenly this isn't too bad. Izuku mused. Hazbinhotel. No one can resist fine looking but in a suit. Angel smirked with Husk and Alastor nodding in agreement. Charlie was not sure how to feel anymore. On one hand, Izuku was getting attention he was starved off from his last school and deserved. On the other hand, she didn't want any less than ideal girls showing him the time of day. He didn't need to go through the drama and heartbreak she'd had with her ex. The Princess of Hell's mind briefly wandered to said ex, Sevathan Eldritch, the brother of her rival, whose name she refused to think so that she could focus on listening to her brother's show. He was also one of the very few people Izuku had hated from the moment they'd met. You know, I think there's a reason he disappeared now that I think about it. Charlie muttered to herself. Oh well. She then pulled Vaggie into a HG and peppered her neck with kisses. Yeah, safe to say the Princess of Hell was happier now. Undisclosed location. 20 Earth minutes later. How had things gone downhill so fast? The bus ride had been fun and happy, the students going over who they thought was going to make it biggest and erupting in delight when they saw Space Hero 13 waiting for them in front of the Unforeseen Simulation Joint Training Center USJ for short. This was the first true test in heroism. And then a portal had opened up suddenly. Out came a man covered in hands, a giant of blackened flesh with an exposed brain and beak and an army's worth of villains. Real villains. Hello there. The portal, now manifesting eyes, greeted. We are the League of Villains. The duo in suits and shades held back laughs. League of Villains? That's the best name you schmucks could come up with. Like DHRKS is any better. The man covered in hands grimaced, before he realized something. Hey, where's All Might? He was supposed to be here. Aizawa and 13 stood in front of their students. Get back on the bus. The doors suddenly slammed and shut into locked behind them. I don't think so. The portal said. Don't bother calling for help, all communications are down. He then turned to the one covered in hands, who was violently scratching his neck. Tamura Shigaraki. Remember Plan B. The two in suits had not been aware of this, but before they could inquire, it was answered. Right. Tamura. If the number one isn't here, let's just kill some of his students. Seeing the smirks of the villains, Izuku was reminded of his childhood bullies. In a mix of instinct and going all out, he flung his hands forward, producing a stream of green flame that latched onto several of the villains before they vanished. What? Tamura asked. Midoriya. Aizawa asked. Where did you send them? Somewhere in hell. Good day, ladies and gentlemen. The villains regained enough semblance to see they had landed in an area of red. Lots and lots of red. And some of them were looking different. Now, as the more perceptive of you have probably realized by now, this is hell, and I am a demon. You can call me Toby, if you like, we try and keep things informal here, as well as infernal. He what for a moment, as if expecting a response. That's just a little joke. He explained. It's hell, no one gives a f. A passing demon hollered. Ooh. Fresh meat. Another said. They went ignored as Toby focused on his job. Now, you're all here for eternity, which I hardly need tell you is a sod of a long time, so you get to know everyone well by the end, but for now I'm going to have to split you up into groups. Before I do that, are there any questions? Yes. Can I change my pants? A villain asked. Many muttered in agreement. No, I'm afraid we don't have any bathrooms for sinners. I don't know if you read your Bibles, or Torans, or whatever sacred script you grew up with, but if you did you would have seen that it was damnation without relief. So, if you didn't go before you came, then I'm afraid you're not going to enjoy yourself very much, but then, I believe that's the idea. And at that moment, the villains knew they were screwed. Right, let's split you up then, one moment, would you please cut it down on the rack? Oops. Sorry. A bigger and stronger demon who had been cranking the rack apologized and paused, which his victim was grateful for. All right, off we go. Toby began to read down the list. Murderers, over here. Looters and pillagers, over there please, thieves if you could join them, and bank managers. Fornicators, if you could step forward. Most of the villains and several new arrivals did just that. At least 100 or so. By Cain, there are a lot of you. I'll have to split you, Adulterers and lollicons, if you could just form a line in front of that small guillotine there. Many whimpered. The rest of you line up behind them for now. Okay. Americans, any of you here? Surprisingly, a few did raise their hands. Yes, I'm terribly sorry, turns out the big guy had a falling out with your founding fathers and damned the whole in preparatory. He sends particular condolences to the Shield and Walker families, Stars and Stripes and the Mormons, who he realizes, and I'm quoting, put in a hell of a lot of work. Toby let that one sink in for a moment before continuing. Atheists. Over here please. You must be feeling a right bunch of twits, aren't you? They were indeed. Okay, and Christians? Ah yes, I'm sorry, I'm afraid the Jews were right. And on that note, anyone who saw Monty Python's Life of Brian? Oh come on. Well, I'm afraid he can't take a joke after all. Toby chuckled as he looked down the list. Okay, Moonies, maniacs, marmite eaters, male models, masochists, mass murderers and masseurs, if you could take a pew at the back, geez, when were the terms for this last updated? A few minutes later everything was sorted out. Some were now without whatever made their gender and still terrified beyond words, but considering where they were, they considered those acceptable sacrifices. "Alright, one final thing," Toby announced. "Hope so," someone whispered, only to sliced right down the middle by a nearby demon. "You lot now have a choice. You can wander around and pray to survive, or, you can follow me towards the HazbinHotel, where the Princess of Hell herself will work towards rehabilitating you in hopes of sending someone to heaven." There was no choice, everyone raised their hands. This made Toby sigh. He loved seeing these arrogant, quirked humans being brought down a peg or six. Still, he had a job to do. "Now, I hardly need tell you that in heaven, if you ever do go, you will be expected to behave in an exemplary manner, so I hope you will do the exact opposite, tear off their wings, use their halos for frisbee practice, that sort of thing. And do record and send it, please. But won't that send us back here? Why do you think I'm telling you?" "Well, I have to go now, unfortunately, but Beelzebub here. I say, good day. You foolish fodder." The turkey demon chuckled. "We'll show you the ropes, and the chains, and electrodes. That way, you'll try to behave. I'd just like to leave you with a favorite joke of mine, if I may." Everyone groaned, but Toby continued. "Quite apt to the circumstances, I think, which goes something like, knock, knock. Who's there? Death. D.A. Before he could finish, his phone ringed. "Yes. Yes, sir. No, just about done. Yes, I've got time for an errand, to Greed, you say? You know, I've never been to that ring. I do say. Yes, I know. You'd think that in 300 years and with the position you have me I'd have been there once, but nope. What is it you need? Oh. You want me to bring Overlord Mammon in about a contract? Yes, I'm sure I can do that. Of course, sir. Thank you, sir. Goodbye." He then vanished in a streak of black and red flames. USJ. When the League had entered the USJ, they had been 70 villains strong, not including Tamura, Kurogyri and Nomu. Now they were down to 8, again not including the top 3. Despite this sudden upset, Tamura only scratched his neck twice before commanding. "Nomu. Kill their mage." "No need." An electronic voice burst out with a cackle. "Oi. Hold up." One called out too late as another presence leapt behind him and two, turning a wheel that struck Izuku and sent him flying farther away. "Izuku." His classmates called out, only to be cut off by the remaining villains. After a few tumbles, the green-haired boy managed to kick his attacker off him and pushed himself to his feet, only for shock to cover his face. "Fizzaroli. Hey there, kiddo." The cybernetic clown demon cackled. "Sorry about this, oh, who am I kidding? I ain't sorry for SHT. Ever since Izuku's show had erupted in popularity, Fizzaroli sales had gone down substantially. And while the actual Fizz didn't much care, his work and interest were more adult-orientated, this robot had been edited to hate this kid for stealing his spotlight. "You've been ticking off some real powerful folks with your hero work and show, kiddo. So, Mammon, in his grace, sent me to get rid of ya." Izuku wasn't surprised by this too much. He had expected such a thing, but to send a robot. Blitzo had dealt with one already, he then realized this one wasn't glitching. And, it was glowing. "Oh, you've spoiled the surprise. Naughty boy." Fizzaroli smirked before leaping forward and slashing at the boy. The slashes burnt and bubbled, making Izuku scream in pain and look on fear as he realized what was going on. This robot's claws and teeth were made of holy material. Hell! Where did he get those? Was the question on everyone's mind, despite the fact it really should not have been. After any purge, there was always a little bit of holy material left behind from the exorcists and their weapons. While it was toxic and deadly to sinners and demons, there did exist the means of handling and shaping it into something else. Something that could turn a cheap robot into a killing machine. The question remained, however. But this was not on the minds of any of the hotel staff. Charlie had stopped listening and was about to break into a run. Charlotte. Everyone turned in a mix of shock and horror to see Lucifer himself sitting down with a martini in his hand. You know that's not how it works. Only way we can go to the human world is if someone summons us, or we possess someone. Charlie did know this and she hated it. Dad, please. There has to be some kind of exception. Lucifer sipped his drink, seemingly finding it more interesting than his youngest being in mortal danger. Izuku is a smart kid. Plus, if he does die he'll be here all the time. It'll be good both for you. And besides, he knew the risks going into heroism. Back with the students. What was that thing and what the hell does it want with my student? Aizawa demanded as he and 13 dealt with the lesser villains. Agents 1 and 2 had prepped for this. Let me ask you this, don't it strike you as odd? That one kid has a whole bunch of powers under one quirk. A quirk that awoke so late. You did read his info, right? 2 asked. So what? 13 asked. You're creature rejection, aren't you? Mina glared at them, Kuji, Tsuyu and Fumikage joining in her glare as less than ideal memories filled their heads. What? No. We ain't those racists. One shouted in disgust. Although, his BRTH story. 2 started, only to duck under a 4-armed villain being thrown at her. Meanwhile, Tamura, whose irritation was getting worse, decided to do what all villains eventually do, but never do at first. You want something done right? Do it yourself. Guys. Kill them all. Starting with the suits. Tamura demanded as he raced towards the teachers. Now. One of the villains, wearing a skull mask, noted. Let's not finish all of them off too quickly. Some of these girls ain't half bad. The entirety of the class was mixed between rage, fear and "You disgust me." That came from Mineta, who had flung his ball at the perverse villains, gagging some of them and sticking other together. The other students looked at him in shock. I may be a perv and I fully admit I only want to be a hero so that girls will like me. Mineta admitted. But, you guys are sick shits. If I'm going to be with a lady, I want her to want it. Unlikely as that may be. And thus, began the redemption of Minoru Mineta. The villains suddenly fell to the ground with holes in their heads, courtesy of 1 and 2's guns. Wait, what? Toru asked. Aren't you? Shuji started. We only want the broccoli brat. 2 snarled. None of you other kids are getting hurt. 1 then whipped out his phone and, seeing it had a full 5 bars, tossed it at Kyoka. Call for help and then go back the kid up. We'll help your teachers. He ordered as he and 2 raced to do just that. Tamura had to admit, Eraserhead and 13 now with her back destroyed had lived up to the hype and pushed him to his limits. So did these dorks from DHORKS, who had killed the rest of his pawns. It's over, Shigaraki. 2 declared. Oh, you're right about that. But you see, I'm not the final boss. Tamura smirked, pointing behind Aizawa. He is. The teacher barely had time to register the blackened, meaty fist that sent him flying. Agents 1 and 2, however, did have time to realize that Nomu was now glaring at them. Welp. F. The 2 agents said together as their own beatdown began. Things weren't too good on Izuku's end. Fizzaroli was faster than him and all the injuries he was amassing slowed him down. Man. I was expecting to at least lose a tooth or break something. This is just sad. The robot beamed. I mean, you really thought you could be a superhero? You. Ha. That's hilarious. Maybe it was the BLD loss and pain, but Izuku started laughing too. even as the robotic Jezier slashed and bashed him to the ground. "Ah, nice to see you go out with a smile, kid. But I gotta ask, why are you laughing?" Amid his laughs, Izuku managed. "Did you forget that Alastor is hearing every word of this?" The fight went silent. "What?" was all the robot managed to say. "Why do you think he called the radio demon?" Izuku chuckled. "He broadcasts all over hell. By now, everyone LL know whatever you and Mammon did." Fizzaroli's jaw dropped in shock before he was suddenly reduced to dust by an annoyed Tamura. "You know, I set 3 goals for myself this morning," Tamura ranted. "Wake up before 10. Eat something healthy. And kill somebody at UA. And for a minute, it looked like I was going to get one of them done." He turned his attention to Izuku. "And then you show and F everything up. First you warped most of my party away. Then that hunk of junk can't finish its DMN job, and now its handlers have started killing what few minions I have left because they wanted to give the fan service what they deserve and want." Instantly, Izuku's hate for this guy went up, as did his tolerance for DHORKS. Kurogyri. On it. Izuku felt his torso slipping into a portal. "I'd normally not wish this on anyone, save All Might," Kurogyri said. "Especially not someone with a warp ability like yourself. But you are indeed a problem that needs to be axed." Tamura started laughing. "Looky here, a hero in need of help, and nobody here to save him. HEYHNDJB. A familiar, gravely voice roared. "Shut up." Tamura felt a 2-footed kick push him back just as Izuku saw and felt tape pull him out of the portal. He then caught sight of Ojiro tail whacking Tamura further away. Before he could defend his MSTR, Kurogyri felt a strong hand clamp on his brace and his face hit the floor. "Not very manly to do this, but for my prez sake. I can make an exception." Kirishima hollered. "Excellent work. Hold him as still as you can," 13 said as she activated her quirk, Black Hole, and began to SCK the Warp Gate villain into a container. Ice suddenly burst and engulfed Nomu up to his neck, revealing Todoroki. Izuku saw his classmates had all come to aid. "You should surrender," Momo announced. "While our communicators are still down, those 2 agents were in perfect condition. The teachers know and are on their way." "Looks like you done, goofed." Mineta blew a raspberry at Tamura, who seemed too calm. "Fine. More the merrier." Tamura smiled as he rose his hands upwards. "Always wanted to try this anyways." Remembering what had happened to Fizzaroli and not wanting to test the limits of this villain's quirk, Izuku's eyes snapped open and he released a streak of flames onto his classmates, who found themselves outside of the USJ with the injured Aizawa, 1 and 2. Did he just? Kuji started. "He warped us out," Ochako voiced. "And in such a rough state," Rib bit. "So you followed?" "Wait, Izuku's still in there." Mina gasped in shock. Indeed he was. Izuku, his stamina draining from just that, looked at the villains. "Well, you certainly are talented," Kurogyri mused. "But from the looks of it, that took a lot out of you, didn't it? I think you deserve a treat for all of the SHT you've thrown our way." Tamura smiled. "Nomu, get out." The creature's free head then struggled ultimately did pull free of the ice, minus its body. However, it then began to regrow the entire body. "Neat, huh?" Tamura smirked. "Nomu here has multiple quirks, super regeneration, super strength and shock absorption and even a little super speed. He's basically a punching bag that punches back. The only way to hurt him is to gouge out his flesh, but no one can do that, certainly not a kid like you in your state. We made him to kill All Might at his peak. How'd you like to experience an All Might punch?" The villain's happiness returned as he saw the look of shock on this boy's face. Looks like he was going to kill someone from UA after all. Izuku, however, had heard this differently. So, you're saying, I could punch him with 100% of my strength, and he wouldn't feel it? Yep. You're saying, I could unleash my full firepower, and he'd just tank or regenerate from it? There a point to these questions, kid? Tomura grimaced. Yeah. You're telling me, someone who was bullied, neglected, ignored and insulted, for 13 years of his 15 years of life, and has had to suppress his urges and settle for revenge fantasies, every single day. That no matter what I do, he won't fall. No, a sane person might have stopped and realized that this series of questions did not bode well for their artificial human. But sadly, Tomura was not a sane person. You know what? Give it your best shot. He dared the boy. Izuku simply removed earphones and then his visor, and seeing those familiar kanji of wrath, sloth and greed, he felt better. Thank you, Tomura Shigaraki. Izuku smiled as he found himself being pushed back to his feet, his bleeding wound sealing up and his bones and muscles put back into place as his demon form manifested and green flame danced around his form. Okay, that's cool. Tomura admitted just as Izuku delivered a flaming punch to Nomu's stomach. Didn't you hear a thing I said, kid? Nomu. He cut himself off when he saw that Nomu's burns didn't heal. Smoke accompanied a cough and the creature stumbled briefly before returning to its fighting stance. Tomura and Kurojire's worry became clear, as Izuku's delight became clear and he sent Nomu flying with a kick. In hell. Alastor found himself pausing during his narration of the beatdown that followed. Through his link with the prince, he could see and feel what he felt. And at that moment, he saw Charlie alongside Izuku as he replicated her kick. Then he produced fiery wings and claws like husks, slashing at and beating the behemoth, which swung a meaty fist he managed to dodge, only for his other arm to be grabbed and his pinky and third fingers crushed. Grimacing and working through the pain, Izuku stabbed Nomu with his horns, forcing the creature to release him. He then unleashed a barrage of small fire bullets from his 8 remaining fingers, mimicking angeldust's shooting style and pushing it backwards towards a fall. The demon boy then created a green version of Cherry's bomb and flung it at Tomura and Kurojire, pushing them back and allowing him to go wild. In the Ring of Wrath, cheers for the prince could be heard all over the ring. Lucifer and Lilith cackled in pride and Charlie cheered the loudest. Yeah. That's my baby brother. USJ. 5 minutes later, the USJ was wrecked, on fire and Nomu and Izuku, his elation starting to settle down, were still fighting. However, the artificial human was slowing down and was close to death, its form filled with burns and holes that were not healing, its lower jaw non-existent and one of its arm just dangling. Channeling every last bit of fire, sin and strength into his right fist, Izuku smirked and did something he had wanted to do for a very long time. Testament. Nomu, invigorated, leapt towards him in an attempt to land a killing blow. Smeawa-ash. The flaming fist hit Nomu right in the brain and sent him flying out of the USJ, just overhead Class 1A, who had been able to make out green lights from within and had been stuck in their places by the power their class rep was pouring out to defend them. Remind me to stay on his good side. Kaminari begged of everyone. Out of the students, none was more shaken than Shoto Todoroki. He had come here thinking, knowing, he was the strongest student, and then this happened. He would have little time to reflect on this however, as a blur zipped past the students just as the teachers arrived. Back inside, Izuku fell to a knee, gasping for air. Whoa boy, I don't think I can do any more of that, for a while. He then saw and felt he wasn't alone. Oh yeah, forgot about you too. He chuckled weakly. Tomura was breathing in and out, trying to keep his temper in check as he raised his hand up high. Why you cheated. But whatever Tomura was about to do was forgotten when the USJ door fell between him and the student and in stormed a mighty figure with a look of pure, unadulterated rage. Have no fear, young Midoriya. All Might said through his teeth. I am here. Back in hell. Where in heaven has that idiot been? Charlie roared, her words heard all throughout hell, which seemed to shake in her anger. Angel, Niffty, Cherry and Husk all clung onto each other in fear as Vaggie tried to calm her lover down. Charlie, mi corazón. Don't you, Charlie, mi corazón, me. The princess of hell roared. Some number one hero that moron is. Let Izu do all the work, eh? Charlotte Magna, that is no way to. Lucifer started, only to be cowed by Charlie's glare. Vaggie, sympathizing with her love's father, gently mouthed for him to let her handle this. Lucifer smiled and tipped his hat to her and left the room. Back at UA. With rage clear on his face, the number one punched Tamura in the face with an enraged fist, destroying Kotaro's hand and sending Tamura skidding across the flood zone like a skipping stone before punching into the hull of the ship and sinking it. Leave. Now. He growled at the warp user. He didn't trust himself, he had some time before he reached his limit, these two were nowhere near as strong as that thing Izuku had fought. If they pulled anything here and now, he might just kill them. Kurogiri did just that, with Tamura, now bleeding and broken, shouting. I may have failed today, but mark my words, All Might. Your days are numbered. Yours too, Izuku, whatever the hell your name is. I am going to kill you. You, your families, your friends, your lovers. I will not stop until everything you love is dust between my fingers. UFING here. In hell, his status went from pending to arriving shortly. Something that delighted Lucifer, who pulled out his pocket watch and saw that it was counting down to 3 months from now. It's been far too long since we had a destroyer in this place. The king of hell smirked. Who knows? Maybe he'll get rid of Vox for me. Back on Earth. All Might was quickly by our hero's side, catching him as he fell. Young Midoriya, are you alright? Tired. Izuku managed. Everyone. Your classmates and the teachers are safe. Thanks to you. Izuku smiled weakly at that news, fighting to keep his eyelids open. Rest up, my boy. You've earned it. All Might assured his student with a gentler smile, closing the boy's eyes for him and then leaping back to the others. Izuku, however, continued to grimace before his headphones and visor were put back on him by Ijiro and Mina. Is he? Hitoshi started. Extreme quirk exhaustion, mostly. All Might said. The worst of his injuries seem to be healing already, recovery girl can take care of the rest. He then eyed the 2 DHRKS agents. You two, have some explaining to do. 1 and 2 were in too much pain to claim diplomatic immunity when the police came. However, when the students recounted how they had fought to protect them for as long as they did, their treatment was a little better than most, certainly the remaining villains and what remained of Nomu. The number one gently handed Izuku off to Ijiro and Ochako, who carried him over to Recovery Girl. Pride in the young man filled the pro's heart, along with concern and some confusion. He was aware Enji's boy had a dual-element quirk, but was with Izuku's? I can probably explain, Toshi. The number one looked up to see his police friend, Detective Tsukauchi. You know him? The detective smiled and nodded, shooting the kid a look that seemed a mix of resignation and liking. It's kind of a long story. Although, let me just say this now, you're not going to believe this. All Might smiled. Try me. A few hours later, Izuku awoke in a hospital bed, his classmates all looking over him. Oh, thank Kami, you're alive. Hitoshi said in relief. I was not looking forward to another election. That's his way of saying he's glad you're okay, Ribbit. Tsuyu said, Kuji and Toru nodding in agreement. You were so cool, dude. Mineta and Denki beamed, making Izuku wince from the volume. Quiet, you morons. He just woke up. Kyoka growled after slapping them. You okay, Izuku? Ochako asked worriedly. Need anything? Juice? Tea? Snacks? A 5-course dinner? Say the word and I'll deliver it personally. Momo opened her wallet, producing a wad of cash most dreamed of having. Some ice water, please. Izuku requested. Here. Shoto handed him a chilly glass of water, which Izuku downed greedily. Thank you. So, is everyone okay? All Might said so but. Dude. Mina cut him off, her smile honed and replaced by a look of regret. You almost died. Twice. We're all fine, thanks to you. But we were so scared. Izuku felt guilty for making his crush lose her smile and frowned. I'm sorry, I just didn't want anyone to get hurt. And that's a hell of a manly thing to do, but you shouldn't do it all yourself. Eijiro added. The darkness is not yet ready for you, as we are not ready for you to leave. Fumikage followed up. Indeed, a shining emerald like yourself deserves to share the spotlight with us. Aoyama posed as Izuku, tears stinging his eyes, smiled and thought. I've barely known these guys for a week and a half. But if anything happens to any of them, I will happily DMN myself. It was then that Izuku finally saw the kanji that had been on Aoyama. Liar. He tensed at this, and doing such irritated one of his scars, causing him to fall back. His classmates inched forward in fear. Alright, that's enough. In came Aizawa, bandaged like a mummy. Everyone out. He needs his rest. The students slowly started to leave, whispering goodbyes and thanks to Izuku. Mina was the second last to leave, and before that she knelt down and gently pecked Izuku on the forehead. Rest up, Izzy. She smiled. Izzy was frozen, a pretty girl had just kissed his forehead. His crush had just kissed his forehead. A dopey, happy smile crossed the boy's face, getting a giggle from Mina as she then left to leave with Eijiro. He happily waved goodbye. From outside, the others spied this, and while Mina continued on her way with her best friend, the other girls made a silent agreement with a shared smile. This left Izuku with Aizawa and Hitoshi. The teacher looked at the brainwasher, who just stood there. What you did was brash and foolish. Never do that again. I don't think he heard you. Hitoshi smiled, waving his hand in front of Izuku's smiling face. I'll repeat it to him later. Aizawa sighed but motioned for Hitoshi to go home as he made his way back to his room before Chio beat him back into it. Luckily, she was helping Inko clear her son out. Said mother was prepared to barrel in and hug her baby, but then she saw the state he was in and had to, despite herself, hold in squeals with glee. She then settled in to sleep in a chair beside her son, closing his eyes and tucking him in. Sleep well, my little hero. Inko cooed before she pulled out a book to fall asleep to. Izuku stirred a few hours later and spied his mother sleeping in the chair beside him. Smiling sadly, he kissed her cheek and wrote down a note for her. Going to see Charlie and the others. Be back for breakfast. Love you. He then snapped his suit on before washing his face, but being careful not to touch his forehead, the image of Mina filling his head. Feels good, doesn't it? He hadn't heard that voice in a while. Fighting for your pals. Them coming to back you up. And all while looking like an innocent, adorable kid when underneath, you're a bloodthirsty battle nut. And speaking of adore. The voice suddenly said. Mina. Izuku. Froze. Oh ho ho, you've always denied those kinds of feelings, ever since you were a kid. But now. In the throes of PBRTY. Izuku turned up the volume on his headphones, trying to drown out the voice. How badly do you want to make her laugh and keep smiling? Oh, how you long to hold her in your arms. How you dream of running your hands over that amazing body. Smelling that shampooed hair, be the one whose name is in her head and heart. Make her the queen she deserves to be, your queen. What's stopping you? Izuku slapped himself and got off the train, summoning a portal. The voice was gone, for now. Being raised right by mom certainly helped. The portal opened right inside the hotel lobby. Our hero headed straight to Alastor, who was amid getting dinner started. However, his quest was sidestepped by Charlie, who hugged him tightly and peppered his face with kisses. I know your teachers already said this, but, that was so stupid of you, taking on that thing when you were halfway dead. Izuku winced and looked down at his feet. So, why am I so DMN proud of you? He looked up in confusion, but then smiled and hugged her. Their hug was then joined by Vaggie, Angel, Cherry and Husk. Heard what you did, kid, flattered. The Pawn Star smiled, messing with the boy's hair as Husk handed him an ice-cold milkshake, which he gulped at. Ah! Izuku. Alastor made himself known. Wonderful to see. Mom made my costume. Izuku cut him off. Alastor's smile vanished, replaced by a look of shock. Oh. He mutely responded. Oh. Oh my, oh dear. Yes. Izuku frowned. A deafening hush fell over the hotel. It was of such intensity that no one could appreciate the fact that Izuku had cowed the radio demon. Alastor. Charlie said after 2 minutes of silence. Yes, my dear. The radio demon whimpered. Not in fear of Charlie, but in shame of how he had ruined such a kind mother's token of affection for her son. Cooking and dishwashing duty. Izuku gets enough jambalaya for a week. The Princess of Hell demanded. Fair enough. Alastor nodded, making his way to the kitchen. Not too spicy this time, please. Izuku requested. Now, some readers may be wondering where Alastor got the suit and what happened to the costume Inko made. The answer came the very next day, when Class 1B moved to take their first combat trials, just before being sent home for the next few days. So obvious. All Mike mused, holding back a chuckle. If only Alastor could have known what he had unleashed, because as it turns out, a rival overlord had a spy in UA and the incident had just given them an ideal pawn. A hand burst through Izuku's back as a holy spear went through the demon prince's shoulder before coming out of his side. The owners of the respective attacks inched ever closer to a 6-horned child with bushy hair. Izuku, with what seemed like the last of his strength, pushed himself and his attackers into what looked like a supernova made of holy light, smiling brightly the whole way as he and his foe were destroyed, along with what appeared 2 or 3 armies. She then saw herself holding back the now bawling child before the scene shifted once again. If she was already close to tears at seeing her friend's coming death, this ensured her tears. A familiar lullaby began to play throughout the scenes. Only this time. Octavia herself was the one singing. And no matter the scene, she saw herself being close to the child her friend had died for. The images flew by quickly, but she made them out. One moment, Octavia was playing at the park with the child with Charlie and a pink-skinned and haired girl watched. The next, she was squawking angrily at some demons who had made the child cry. In another, she had fallen asleep in a library with them. In another, the child wore a crudely made owl-like superhero costume and Octavia seemed to be holding in some emotion. And in yet another, she watched over the child as they napped in their room. The final image was of the child, now a teenager, joining her on one of her affairs in the human world, both smiling confidently. Present. The owl princess stumbled onto her feet, fighting back tears as she snuck back into her room, trying to make sense of what had just happened. At the same time, she was trying to not make sense of what she saw, she didn't want to understand. Izuku may be naive and too nice. He was way too determined to help the stupid mortals, on top of sinners and demons. In any other circumstances, Octavia would have wanted nothing to do with him. But that first birthday Charlie had brought him to. She had been so happy to see someone to her age, and they had so much fun playing tag and talking about hell's wildlife and biggest fights that no matter what changed, she kept an eye on or in contact with him. In a desperate attempt to distract herself, she then listened to latest Prince Izuku podcast. What she heard made her proud of her friend for standing his ground and eager to hear one of the overlords get their comeuppance. And yeah, she gaffed at the idea of Izuku in a tux, they did not suit him. Remembering something in the tome her dad had asked her to give a read, Octavia quickly pulled the book out and flipped through the pages. She stopped when she saw the weird mirror thing and skimmed through the details, finding one in particular. Nothing that was seen was for certain. It was then and there, that Octavia Gosha made her decision, one that would shake the worlds. Not too far from the hotel, a certain freelance imp assassin with a holy sniper rifle had overseen the whole affair. So alright folks, that's all for today. Stay tuned for part 4. Do subscribe, like and share for more such videos. Also check out the story and author Mrotrax on FANFICTIONnet. Press the bell icon to be notified first on release. See you in the next video. Till then, goodbye.